accused South African Airways is a vanity project and should be sold. That's according to at least one academic. Wits University professor Yanni Rousseau says taxpayers cannot keep bailing out the national carrier. His comments come after the airline received a 5 billion rand cash injection from Treasury. However, SAA's CEO is determined to turn the airline around in 5 years, and he has vowed to personally donate 100,000 rand if he fails. Mr. Vuyani Jahana joins me in studio this morning. A very good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. To sell or not to sell? That's the question.
I think the big thing is that we have a work at hand now to turn around the airline. We have to execute on the strategy. I think government has already pronounced that in the big scheme of things, a strategic equity partner should be considered for SAA. And I think the debate, therefore, it's much of muchness. What we need to focus on as South Africans is to execute on the turnaround strategy. That's what the board and the management team that I lead are focusing on, making sure SAA can be transformed to be a profitable business. It's a very strong brand globally, and it's a very good airline. As late as 2 days ago, we were ranked number 5 on the best service in terms of on-time performance and service on board, ahead of some of the big names in the airline industry, which means that operationally and in terms of how we do things, the airline is sound. What we need to bring to the fore is the commercial logic of why we do things to make sure that we can actually make sure the airline is able to carry its own costs. So that's the focus.
Okay, so in a nutshell, you don't believe that SAA should be sold. Let's talk about the turnaround strategy that you mentioned. Where are we sitting? You've been in the position for a year now, inherited some serious problems, but where are we with the turnaround?
What we have done in terms of the turnaround plan, we have broken it up into 4 pillars. Pillar 1 was around revenue optimization, network optimization, making sure we can fly the aircrafts a lot more. That's the pillar where we've done the biggest amount of work, rebalancing capacity between SAA, master brand, full service carrier with Mango, relooking our routes to London, relooking the Africa routes, where we have seen that gross profit margins now have come back in the domestic market as well as in the rest of the continent. We have to deal with the international market on its own, because there you're facing the vagaries of oil price movement, high levels of competition, but most importantly, the mere fact that when you fly to this international destination, your aircraft stays on the ground for almost 11 hours before it can come back. But we are addressing that through schedule retune. That's pillar 1. Pillar 2 has been around the organizational design, building a fit for the future airline that is run as an international business with the right structure, the right capability, bringing in skills, also identifying gems within SAA and lift them to actually deliver on the strategy. There's great progress there. We've done some work with pilots, negotiating contracts for them globally so that we can lessen the burden on the P&L. There's a lot of work that's being done there. The third pillar is around procurement benefits. We have really looked at the procurement policy. We have looked at onerous contracts. So we are going through them line item by line item to make sure that we can buy products and components at the best price possible. And then the third pillar is transforming the technical organization to be competitive, efficient, as the best aircraft repair organization in the continent. I must say, on this thing about procurement, a lot of progress. 400 million already has been banked. So we know that we are geared for 1 billion rand next year, already identified which contract, what value, what amount of benefits are we going to reap out of this. So there's also a lot of stories that are being circulated in the media to say SAA is buying water at astronomous price point, which are all ridiculous. I need to assure South Africans there's no such things. We're buying water directly from suppliers. We're buying at much more competitive rates. We've got volumes, we've got scale. So there's a kind of the myths that are not helpful for SAA. What we ask people to do is to really read the corporate plan. I think if I listen to Professor, for example, in the interview, he says we have changed from in 6 months. We haven't changed. It's a year now. Day 1 I came, we did the strategy, the corporate plan 2018, 2021. 2023 says we'll break even in 2021. We haven't changed goalposts. We have been very consistent in that regard.
Why should South Africans be patient with SAA for another 5 years? As you mentioned, the turnaround strategy. According to the Free Market Foundation, the carrier has cost taxpayers an estimated 60 billion rand in 20 years.
Well, I think the starting point is that you've got a board and management that is executing on the strategy. And I do not suggest that this is a binary discussion. Already government said, please bring in partnership with the private sector, bring private sector capital to an SAP process. But South Africans need to understand the timing, of the order of priority and the timing of things. Even if you were to go for an SAP today, you are less likely to get a partner when SAA is not yet transformed. And that doesn't mean that if government wants to go and look, we shouldn't. But the reality of the matter is that we are where we are. It's decades of problems, but we've got a board and management that is executing on the strategy, very different from what we've seen at SA. The difference between this board and this management is that they have the guts to execute on strategy, and we're already seeing green shoots of that strategy execution. And I don't think the debate should be whether we should get an SAP versus execution of strategy. It's a combination, but it's all the timing of things. What we ask of is South Africans to read the plan and really go into the corporate plan. It's a public document and hold us accountable for what we do. Unfortunately, we can't answer for what happened 10 years, in the past 10 years, but we can be held accountable for our own execution today. So great progress, revenue, margins are coming back. We still have a long way to take out costs because the contracts, renegotiating contracts, putting them on tender, takes 6 to 12 months in government before you can get success. But we've got teams working hard to make sure we stay within governance, but at the same time we accelerate processes of taking out costs out of the business.
You have said that if the strategy fails, you will pay 100,000 rand. How will that work?
Well, I was always given a wager by the Free Market Foundation to say, well, if you believe in your plan, commit your own personal money and donate to a charity of your choice. And I said, well, to the extent that I believe in the plan, I took up the challenge, so I will still continue to do so. So, because I believe we'll turn around. But at the same time, I'm ready to receive money from Leon Low.
Yeah. Very quickly for us, sir, before you leave, Rwanda is really doing great. Ethiopian Airlines is also doing really great. We're seeing airlines that have come after SAA who have performed really well. In the year that you have been in this role, what is stopping us from getting there? I hear the turnaround strategy. I hear the board is really committed to it. But what has stopped us from reaching heights higher than what we are?
Yeah, look, let's go back to the Ethiopia case, for example, because many people make it as a reference case. I think it's a good case study and a reference case. What you'll see in Ethiopian Airlines, you see stability at the board, stability at management, a consistent leadership team that's been there. I mean, there's Ethiopia CEO, Airways CEO is 10 years in the role. I would imagine that if you've got a CEO at 10 years, the next layer must be sitting at 15 years in the executive layer. That's how great organizations are organized. If you look at retail, look at banking, the most successful organizations have got tenure, have stability at EXCO. SAA has not had that. Now, this is what we want to bring back, bring senior leadership team, bring stability, consistency, so that people can see a long-term plan, 5, 10 years, 15 years, people of SAA. That's not what we've had. Ethiopian Airlines have had that, but also consistency in terms of the purpose. You will see that they are building a big hub in Addis. So the airline is not the end, it's a means to an end. Pulling through traffic, aggregating people to spend more time in Addis, it's a much more bigger economic imperative. And of course, airlines are about national aspirations. You see Rwanda Airlines coming through, very sleek, agile, doing great piece of work, and I think that there's room to partner. So we want to bring back that kind of agility. So we're talking about West Africa, how we partner deeply there. So we're not sitting back and say, well, we're in trouble, therefore we will not. The market is not waiting for us. So we're putting back frequencies in the domestic market, Joburg, Cape Town, Joburg, East London, all those. But the way we are doing it, we have to be commercially sound, we have to be methodical. Otherwise, if you don't balance scale and profitability, you are going to dig yourself deeper and deeper into the hole. So it's about leadership, it's about consistency, it's about the mind of the shareholder, what you want to do with the asset.
Mr. Chakana, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We wish SAA the best. It's in all our best interest that it actually works. And Vuyani Chakana is the CEO of SAA.